Hey, Weintek warriors. Welcome to Weintek Live. Weintek Live is our new weekly live training session. Each week, we cover a new topic to help you on your Weintek HMI application building journey. This live session will run for around 15 minutes, and if you have any questions related to the content being discussed, please wait until after the training session, and we will address some of your questions then. Today, we'll cover how to create, use, and display a simple recipe database and export recipe data to an external storage device. All right, so let's go ahead and start a new Easy Builder Pro project. All right. So within the Data/History tab, select Recipe Database. What's a recipe, you ask? Well, people use recipes for a variety of reasons, such as inventory management, machine or device parameters. There are many reasons why you could and would use recipes. And this is how we build and use recipes within Easy Builder Pro. So here within the Definition tab, to create a new recipe, just select this green plus sign. And I'm going to create a recipe that will keep track of inventory, an inventory management tool of sorts. So I'll give it the appropriate name, inventory, and we have created our recipe database. All right, so we're essentially creating columns like you'd see in a SQL table. So I'm going to go ahead and create 3 recipe items or columns. And like I said, I'm building this for a inventory database. So let's see, our first recipe item we'll call maybe item number. Oh, and we will change the data type here. There we go. Select OK. We're good there. And to edit one of these recipe items, just select it, double click. Let's see, our second recipe item will be item name, and we'll change the data type to ASCII. So we can enter that name, item size. Let's do 10 words. That's 2 characters per word. Display width, we'll select 20 to match those 10 words. Select OK. And finally, let's go ahead and add a recipe item for quantity. Change the data type. All right, so we've got our recipe database here that we'll be using to keep track of inventory. And add inventory to it. Within the Transfer tab, you would transfer recipe data to registers on the local HMI or an external device. We won't be doing that, but if you're looking to do that, that's where you do it. In the Data tab is where we add records to our database. This is where we add pre-designed data. So I'll just add a few here. Let's see, item number. Let's start at 1. Item name. How about the saw cleaver? You know what? Got 8 of these things. Create another record here. Item number 2. Give it an item name of shredded cane. Sounds good. Maybe we've got 6 of these. And finally, let's create one last inventory item. Give it an item number of 3. We'll call this one the whirligig saw. We've only got 2 of those in our inventory. Okay, so we've added 3 records to our recipe database manually. And here within the System Registers tab, you can see, let's say, for example, this section register will display the the number of the current selected record. The count will show the number of records in the current recipe. And the values in this command section will do things like add a new recipe record to our database, update a record, delete a record, and we'll be demonstrating this here shortly. We'll use a value of 1 to add records to our recipe database here shortly. And in the results section, we have, let's see the results that would display if our command was successful. So if we added a new record and it was successful, we would see a value of 1, which would indicate that it was successfully executed. All right, so we've got our recipe database. Now, let's go ahead and create a recipe view object. I'll just go ahead, place this in the project real quick. And this is what we use to view the records within our recipe database. All right, so up top, we have the option to add a filter to the recipe view table. And this would just allow you to search for records by number, name, you know. We also have the option to allow in-cell editing. This will allow us to simply click a record and edit the value in this recipe view item. On the recipe table, recipe name. So we've only got one recipe, so obviously that's automatically chosen, and you can see we have our recipe items here. I'd like to include them all in the table, so I'll leave that selected. We can choose how we would like to sort our records. I'll choose ascending, and we can also choose a look for our recipe view object. I'll keep crystal selected, but I will change the color, make it look just a little more snazzy. All right. Now up top here, we can change the caption. Let's just call it inventory, something appropriate. And bam, we're good to go. Okay, so next let's head to the Object tab, and we're going to add a few numeric and ASCII objects just so we can add recipe data. So I'll select the numeric object, and with the local HMI selected in the address section, I will choose recipe. And in the selection drop-down list, because we're using this to add the record's item number, I will go ahead and choose that option. Select OK. Throw it in our project. Now let's create an ASCII object that will allow us to enter the item name for the record. So again, heading to the address drop-down list, selecting recipe, and because we've only got one recipe item with the ASCII data type, that is automatically chosen. Put it in our project. Alrighty. Now let's go ahead and create one last numeric object that will allow us to add the record's quantity. So I'll choose quantity here, place it within our project. Okay, so earlier we briefly spoke about the command addresses, so I need to create a command register that will enter a value of 1 so that we can add new records to our recipe database. And to do that, I'm just going to head to the Object tab. We're already here. Select a combo button. And in this first action group, I will add a set word option and select write constant value, and that value is 1. Because, we'd like to add a new recipe record. And in the address drop-down list, again, I'm choosing recipe and command. So now we'll be entering a value of 1 in our recipe command register, which will add a new recipe record to our recipe database. I'll go ahead and add a label here. How about add? Perfect. Okay, now let's go ahead and run a quick demonstration to see this in action. Oh, but not before saving it. So let's go ahead and just save that right quick. Okay. So you can see I've got some items here. And looks like we have some additional items that I had added in another project, but we'll just run with it for now. It's interesting. Okay. So, like I said, we can use the filter to search for an item. We want to look for item 3, the whirligig saw. There it is. And because we have in-cell editing enabled, we can go ahead and edit a value if we'd like. Oh, go ahead and there we go. All right, so now let's add a new item, about 5. Let's call this one maybe Rigid A. Oh, and we've got 50 of these things. And just like that, it's been added to our recipe database because we've used the command register to do that. Okay, now let's take the data from our recipe database and throw that in a CSV file and export it. So within the data/history tab, I'm going to select import/export and new. In the type drop-down list, recipe database, and then choose the recipe. I've only got one, so that is already there. I'm going to export the CSV file to USB disk 1. And just like we saw with the recipe database, we have a command register which we will use to export the database records. So we're going to enter a value of 3 into the command register, which I will configure as, let's see here, how about LW100? All right. Now, in order to export the CSV file, we have to specify the folder path and file name. And if you select this option, we can do that in a single register. Let's go with, which in this case will be LW101. Okay. Let's go ahead and change the words. Maybe 30. Perfect. It gives us 60 characters to play around with. All right. So again, head into the Object tab, and let's go ahead and add a set word action that will enter a value of 3, or write a constant value of 3 into our import export objects command register, which we specified as 100. Let's go ahead and give it a label. Export. Perfect. Now, again, we have to specify the folder path and file name. So to do that, I'm going to create an ASCII object, LW, and we specify that that would be in register 101, LW. Let's change the word count to 30. All right. Well, clean this up a little bit. Okay, and we'll add the note here that this needs to be the folder slash file name .csv. Well, you know what? Actually, let's take a quick look at our data site history, head to our recipe database just to make sure that. Where was that? All right, 100. 1. So really, instead of 100, this needs to start at LW3. Or sorry, 103. Okay, so we'll just adjust that real quick on the fly. Oh. Okay. Now let's go ahead and export our recipe data. Run an offline simulation. Okay, so we have our recipe database records here. We're going to export them to our USB disk 1, which is entered in the or USB disk entered in the HMI. So let's go ahead and create a folder name. How about inventory / tools dot CSV. Okay, let's export it and see what happens. All right, so you can see our inventory directory has been created, which we've specified. Pop it open. We've got our tools.csv file. Pop that open. And there it is. Our recipe database records. All right. So you're now prepared to start building your application with an Easy Builder Pro. I'll now take a few minutes to answer some questions related to the information we've just covered. If you have any questions that's not related to the topics discussed, please reach out at our forum. Our forum contains many helpful staff-written technical tutorials, and your questions may have already been asked and answered by other members of the community or us here at Weintek USA. Check it out. It's an invaluable resource. Come on down, sign up, join the Weintek Warrior Nation. You're going to love it. And also, poke around our YouTube channel. A lot of great technical tutorials here, and there's always something in the works.